Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Business Growth on Purpose. And today's guest is going to dig in with me on what's changed in the world of marketing, how buyers buy, and more specifically, how you, as a business owner, can take back control over your marketing and sales process. Specifically, where you might rethink some of that outsourcing you've been doing all these years, reading through 40-page SEO reports, and maybe why that's not as necessary anymore, maybe not even as desirable anymore, given what's happening in the buyer's landscape, how buyers look for things and search for things. Her name is Hannah Eisenberg, and I've known Hannah a long time. She's a real pro. She's done it all. And I think it's going to add a lot of light and heat to this conversation about empowering you to take back control of your sales and marketing. So with that, let's welcome Hannah to our show. Welcome, Hannah, to Business Growth on Purpose.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Hannah, just to give our audience a little context, tell us a little bit about what you do and who you do it for.
Yeah, I had a inbound marketing agency for the last 13 years or so, but I really felt that it's not very scalable for businesses to keep hiring marketing agencies. So now I actually teach businesses, especially construction and B2B software companies, how to bring their marketing and their sales in-house and do it phenomenally well.
Wow. So that's interesting because that category business, if they haven't had an in-house marketing team before, that can feel a little overwhelming because a lot's changed in the marketing framework. I mean, it's all the technology, it's social, it's all of that. So let me just explore briefly here and then lead into what you do. Let's start with maybe the grounding thought. What has changed in how buyers buy?
Yeah, so that's actually a very good question. It used to be very easy. You hire a marketing agency, you have them write some blog posts, some content, do some lead generation, and that was relatively easy and it worked quite well. But now buyers are, and especially now with AI, they're really shifting towards doing so much more research online. And they're doing it in a way that generic content that a marketing agency is developing isn't good enough. They really don't want to just read a little bit, call this the company, but they really want to do, depending on the industry that you're in, about 70 to 90% of that journey, they want to go by themselves. And then they call a salesperson just to confirm a few things or answer a few last questions. And then that's when they make their purchase. And a recent Gartner study, I don't know if you heard that one, actually says that 75% of people, B2C and B2B, want to have a complete seller-free experience. So no salespeople at all.
That would be the preference.
That is the preference. So that's where we're heading.
Wow. So that's if you're a an old sales dog like me, it's like, well, we add value.
No, you absolutely do. Absolutely. Salespeople are not going to go away, but they will have to change their approach a bit rather than, oh, marketing is going to do the teasing to get them, to call us. And then we explain the world to the buyer. That has shifted where, as I said, marketing is doing that 70, 90%, but the salesperson is really important because they are the key here to building trust, to building that relationship, to educating the buyer. And that really ties it then off.
So now a company, you mentioned construction or SaaS technology, software companies, $4 or $5 million or whatever. And they've had these marketing agencies doing their SEO, their AdWords, their lead gen, their LinkedIn, social, and so on. Now you, taking your years of experience, and you and I go way back, we've worked together on projects before. You now have to take that deep experience and say, okay, I'm going to equip you to do a lot more of this yourself and not be as dependent on these third-party agencies and so on. Do you ever get somebody to say, well, wait a second, I don't have the experience, the training, that's like a black art. Like, how do you get people to the point where they even think it's possible to take over more and more of their own marketing?
Yeah, it's a good question. It is overwhelming. There's no question about it. And even companies that have one marketing person in-house who maybe helps with trade shows and writes some blog articles, it is still overwhelming for them to do it in a scale where they could get rid of their marketing agency to do, the SEO or not pay someone externally to depend on their growth anymore. So the way we do it is we use a proven framework called the Ask You Answer, and we just go very step by step. So I come in, and if that is the problem that they're struggling with, I help them to write the job description. There's a really good playbook that I have on how to hire the right roles and how do you get the right candidates for those roles. What do you do in the interviewing process, etc. And I help onboard them. And then I train them for about 6 to 9 months every week, where I really give them all of my experience. I read their content, give them feedback, I watch their videos. So it's really, really hands-on training. But then on top of it, you kind of need to have a change in culture as well. So I help coach their executives, the marketing, the leadership team and sales, and the overall leadership in the company to embrace that new sort of alignment between marketing and sales and make that culture of customer first.
Okay, so that could be a big shift going from.
Yeah.
So question, right? So if I've had a marketing agency doing my work, they've been, and I often talk to owners and I ask them a question, how's it going? Say, well, we got the guys, we got the team, we've been working with them for 4 or 5 years. And I said, well, what kind of lead flow has come from their efforts? How much have you spent on them? And it's X dollars, and have you divided leads over X dollars? And well, they tell me it's not that easy, because then they show me these SEO reports, and to all this, it just feels like such deep waters. So I'm really curious. I'm kind of going back to my earlier question, but just expanding on it a little bit. How do you get an owner or a leadership team to even believe they can do this? Because up till now, they've been told by the people they've hired that it's really mysterious, it's deep, it's dark, it's immense, it's so fast changing, it's AI. How can I, if I'm like an operations guy or an engineering guy or a software development person, how do I adapt to those other skills that maybe I don't think are my skill set?
Yeah. So that's actually the biggest leap, right? That you have to make first. And there's multiple ways of how you arrive at that point. The easiest way is you read the book, They Ask You Answer, because it is not rocket science. When you read the book, it's like the biggest reaction I always hear people have to the book is like, dang, I should have done that years ago. It is not rocket science. All this all those agencies make it feel so difficult when it actually isn't, because they're trying to, well, there's a lot of honest agencies out there and they're really trying, but there's a big disconnect between the agency and the actual company. When you bring someone in-house, the person is going to be much more educated. They're only going to work for you. They're only going to, so there's a shift there in terms of what you can
Right.
get
So Hannah, just to clarify, so
Yeah.
sometimes the recommendation is hire somebody to do some work for you.
Yeah.
It's not like just adapt new set of skills you never had before. But it's about in-sourcing or in-housing the function rather than outsourcing it.
Yes. So that's the first thing that someone has to actually think about and agree to, but that's a big leap. The second sort of thing that I recommend when someone has that struggle of, can I even get to that point, or can I even, do this in-house, is we do a what we call an alignment day.
Mm-hmm.
And I come in and we bring everyone who is customer facing. So sales team, marketing team, the customer service team, a lot of times, and leadership into one room. and we really take a step back, like you do with value prop also, and we just align. We just understand of why things have changed, where things are going, and how are we going to deal with that future. And a lot of times people after that said, you know what, I really thought it wasn't going to be possible for me to do this, or I didn't really understand of why I should be doing this, but now I get it. Now I understand why we need to do that. And at the end of the day, we walk away with really having a huge list of articles, videos that they want to produce, and a clear picture of what the next 90 days look like. And that is pretty much a game changer.
Okay. Wow. So that it gives, so it sounds like there's a certain amount of foundation work you have to do that you can't skip over, like that alignment day. You don't do that. You have a lot of people with a lot of opinions, but they're not they're not on the same page, pulling the same direction. Now, what's amazing is how sometimes that's hard to even, it's like herding cats to get people to agree to the meeting and so on. So let me loop it a little bit into kind of the stuff somebody would have to do, right? So right away I look at, okay, I have to create marketing collateral. I have to update and maintain my website. I have to maintain social channels. I have to maybe do some PR, depending what industry I'm in. I have to plan for trade shows. Boy, that's a lot to bring in. Do you ever do it in stages, like keep your agency for this until you take over this?
Yeah.
Is it all at one time, or do you try to loop in? Somebody says, I like my agency, they've been good to us. Can you work with them in the same framework?
Yeah. So every organization is different. Every organization has different needs. Some have a well-functioning marketing team, or they have 2 salespeople, but they are going to be hiring 10 more. So, you start off every single time in a very different spot. This program of getting people to be fully independent from their marketing agencies and really take ownership of their growth as an organization is really, depending on the company, between 12 to 24 months.
Okay.
So in those 12 to 24 months, it really depends on how quickly do you want to hire people? How many people do you have already in-house that we can just train? Are you starting to do video, or do you have already a YouTube channel of 200 videos? So very different in terms of what you do and how you do it, depending on your unique situation. And then, yes, we do sometimes say, okay, we're going to start in your situation because your industry, is really good with video. We start with video first, but you're going to keep your agency right now for content.
Mm-hmm.
And we really start there. So we organize everything in 90-day sprints. And then depending on how much progress they're making, what their unique situation is, we progress through that program as quick as possible. But there's always sort of a checklist of things we have to achieve. And it's my job as a coach to really know which ones are we going to do in which order to really achieve that maximum benefit.
Okay, right. So I like the 90-day sprint. I mean, that's a great framework because it makes sure that you have some sense of urgency in what you're doing and you don't let too much, I mean, time just flaps. I mean, I wrote down my note as we were talking, today's date, and I'm thinking, wow, this year I just remembered it just started and now we're almost halfway through it. So that's pretty interesting. So let me loop back to the original statement, the kind of the predicate thought about how things have changed and how buyers have changed.
Mm-hmm.
So I've actually interviewed Marcus Sheridan, the author of the book, They Ask You Answer. And again, I love that theme there. So buyers, as I understand it now, so buyers generally in almost every category, B2C and B2B, are going way deeper into building up their own personal knowledge and expertise and confidence in making a buying decision before they talk to a seller. Okay. But what about if you're a smaller company that buyer doesn't even know you exist? That's your real challenge, right? It's not that I need to like sell them or convince them. I need to know I'm here. What words of wisdom might there be there in terms of your strategy to bring things in-house and so on? Just getting a seat at the table so that I'm considered for something I'm good at.
Yeah. So with AI, a lot of smaller companies actually have in my opinion, a really big advantage because you're much more nimble and it allows you to do a lot more, a lot faster, even if you have a small team. I would still recommend as a small company that you start with creating that content and creating the videos. But here's the thing, Jose, a lot of times larger companies are stuck in their own ways and they are what Marcus actually calls do ostrich marketing, right? We as buyers, we have so many questions. What is it going to cost? What happens if it breaks? What are we have so many concerns, worries, and fears before we buy, and the company has to answer that one way or another. So if I'm a small company and I actually honestly and transparently answer these questions, chances are the big companies haven't answered them. So immediately you're gonna not only show up in search results, although that really, companies should not rely on that anymore because that really is gonna go not away, but it's going to lose significant importance. I don't know if you noticed with your website, but across the board, we notice about 30 to 40% decline in organic traffic over the last 6 months. And that really is shifting towards ChatGPT, Perplexity, and YouTube.
Right.
So by creating those articles and the videos and embracing maybe YouTube Shorts, that is allowing them to get discovered much easier. But now, because they can embrace it so quickly and be nimble with AI and do so many things, it gives them a massive advantage to actually get out there and be found by people.
Wow. Yeah, so it's interesting, right? So I think this is the essence of entrepreneurship, right? Is like smaller should be faster, should be more nimble. Sometimes smaller is just smaller and older and slower. And not necessarily there, which I think is the argument. Like if you think way back to Michael Gerber and the E-Myth, right? It's like work on your business, not in your business. Yeah. So the argument that has often been taken from that is delegate, replace everything with outsourced resource, like the complete outsourced economy, right? It's like, one person collecting checks in the middle, everybody else is just part of the very variable ecosystem. But it always seemed to me that marketing, and therefore the strategy behind marketing, does require a more intimate understanding of what the business is.
Yeah.
And I think you alluded to this, that sometimes working with agencies is the agency lives to have multiple clients.
Yeah.
So how deep can they go on any one client? Even if unless they're totally niche, like they're the HVAC agency only, that's all the work they do. So any thoughts on that as an argument maybe for why you want to bring more of it in-house, because you're just going to care about it more?
That is the argument to bring it in-house. If I have an agency, they have, like, let's say they have 5 HVAC clients. They're going to regurgitate a certain amount of very generic content. But maybe I'm or let's say a prefab house. If I'm a prefab house provider in an earthquake-prone environment, I have a very particular strength and I can really talk to that very particularly. Now, with AI, I can go to, there's plenty of different vendors where I can just enter a keyword, hit press, or hit enter, and it will spit out this gorgeous 2,000 word written article that you just need to edit a little bit with FAQs and headlines and all, but it's useless. Because if every single person can simply do that, what's the value of me doing that? So I wouldn't even say do that. But what you should do is you should go and hire someone internally, whether that's a videographer and or a content writer. And I'll get to what they can do in addition as well to make it more scalable for little businesses. But they now interview your internal subject matter experts. And that is really the key on how to survive in this new world with AI, because people aren't going to go to Google anymore and type in a search word. They're going to ChatGPT to get an answer. And there's a difference, right? Clicking on the link, reading the article, nope, it's not there, going back. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just going to ChatGPT. I'm asking a question. It'll give me a beautiful answer. And then it gives me links. And you want to be part of that, because if you are the company that really creates this like complete, up-to-date and accurate database of information, or knowledge base of information, that's the word I'm looking for, you're going to be the one who's going to show up there. So that really is the difference. We really have to think more of, we have to build a knowledge base to educate our buyers and to be found in those new AI tools.
Right. And there's no, I mean, and this is what I tell clients, I said, no escaping it. It's happened. The horse has left the barn. It's way down the road. Yeah. Your best hope is to get on the next horse coming through, because it's happening. Yep. Wow. Well, Hannah, this has been great. It's always great just catching up with you, and some great stuff. And I think I love what you're doing in terms of equipping and training. It's a very powerful idea. And I think it's also kind of affirming to people who are running these, let's say, smaller businesses, that, yeah, you actually do know what you're doing, and you can do this, right? So you give people the framework to do that. And so if somebody listening to this wanted to know more about you, your work, how to connect with you, where should they go?
I hang out most on LinkedIn. So hit me up on LinkedIn. It's Hannah, Hannah, and then Eisenberg, Eisenberg.
Okay.
And that's where I hang out. So people can just hit me up there.
Fantastic. And to those listening, the show notes will have links to Hannah's LinkedIn page as well, where she's hanging out. Reach out to her if you need help in this area. Fantastic, Hannah Eisenberg. Thank you for stopping by Business Growth on Purpose. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me so much.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Business Growth on Purpose. If you like the show, hit subscribe and leave us a review to help other people find the podcast. And if you're ready to take the next step in driving intentional growth for your business, come check out what we're doing at valueprop.com. We've developed industry-leading programs and systems to help B2B owners take control of their growth. Until then, thanks for listening to another episode of Business Growth on Purpose.